Are you actively seeking out the growth opportunities to continue to grow and become who you're created to be?
Would you rather invest in it when you're choosing to do it or when it's forced upon you?
Hi, real estate agents. It's Reed Moore, host of the RMG Agent Podcast, and I'm really excited that you're back with us. Today is going to be another incredible episode, and I just want to remind you, you can find us on rmgagentpodcast.com or anywhere that podcasts are played, either with video or with audio. And you can also go to the rmgagentpodcast.com to get our action guides so that when you listen to an episode or watch an episode, you can go and follow along and actually work on some really practical things to empower and encourage yourself in your business so that we can make a maximum impact. So last time we were on our podcast, we talked about outworking or outsmarting and asking that question when we come to crossroads in our business. Do I fundamentally right now need to work harder? Or do I need to go learn something, and do I need to then go work harder? So go check that out. I think you'll enjoy it. And today is all about you becoming better. And if you stick around with us today, I think you're going to be really, really encouraged. And we're going to give you some really good ideas to grow yourself. And by growing yourself, grow your business. As always, I'm here with my wonderful trophy co-host, Jake Bartlett. And Jake, what's going on?
Hey everybody. Super excited for today's episode. We're going to talk about investing in your growth. It's going to be awesome. And hopefully, if you're maybe in a stuck spot right now, that this will be the episode that can help get you through that, just because investing in yourself is really a long-term play. So, Reed, when you think of investing in your growth, when was the first time that you realized it was time to invest in your growth?
So embarrassingly enough, for me, it was 6 years into my real estate journey. I had come out of the military, and I took for granted kind of some of the things that we talked about when we talked about, the fact that you have, freedom and flexibility and financial wealth. We talked about some of these things. And one of the things that I didn't realize that I had been set free from was training and continuing education. So in real estate, you have to do kind of a real base level of continuing education. Every 2 years in most states, you have to complete a certain number of hours just to stay licensed. But that's not really investing in yourself. That's kind of the lowest possible standard. And what I didn't realize when I transitioned into real estate from the military was that my career trajectory in the military was it was all based around training and education. You had to do this training and education to be able to have this opportunity. And once you had that opportunity, there was a new set of training and education, right? And then there were opportunities that you needed to take in training and education outside of that to be able to do your job really well. And so there was a structure, but then there was also external pressures to be able to grow and to get educated. Once I came into real estate, I learned and I grew, and I had some level of education, but I had no idea of what it was like to be learning based, which we'll talk about later. And I had no idea of what it would look like to actually be somebody who truly invested in my growth.
Yeah, so when you think of people that stop growing within real estate, you think of people that, I would refer to as like a dinosaur, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a new system that comes out. They don't want to continue growing. They don't want to find that new thing. They don't want to focus on their growth, which ultimately will lead you to really big things within real estate.
Yeah, and we experience that with, I guess what we call seasoned agents sometimes, because a seasoned agent can mean that you are a wealth of knowledge and wisdom, right? Like a repository.
Right.
It also can mean, somebody can be in this industry for 20 years and they've really only had 1 year of experience 20 different times.
Right.
They haven't actually done enough transactions, and they haven't gone and broadened their horizons. So they'll talk to a new agent, they'll talk down to them and say, "Don't you realize I've been doing this for 20 years?" That's the people who are learning based and the people who are really investing in growth. A lot of times they're not actually acting that way towards other people. Mm-hmm. And the challenge is that you can really spend a lot of time in this industry knowing the core fundamentals and really knowing them quite well and being a good technician, and not understanding all of the things you're missing out on in your business and your life when it comes to not choosing to invest in your growth.
Yeah, so I think it comes back to, we've talked a lot about mindset, effort, skill set, right? Like,
Right.
You're talking about the skill set. Like, as somebody that's been in the business for 20 years and they've done quite a few transactions, they learn the skill set of writing a contract.
Sure.
They learn the skill set of showing homes. That's not really what we're talking about right now.
No, it's not. Certainly building the skill set and increasing your skill set is a part of being learning based, but a lot of it has to do with everything that your real estate business can do for you and can do for the world. And that's not the basics, right? The idea of investing in yourself is a little bit this idea of, you could be a really, really good real estate agent, and you could make really good money for a long period of time. The challenge is you can do that, and you can accidentally do that at the cost of your family, the cost of your physical health, the cost of your spiritual life, the cost of maybe what's possible for you. So some of us are really motivated by what's possible, not like, hey, I can make $100,000, I can make $300,000, I can make it $500,000 a year, whatever that thing is. That's really good, and it's a good measurement of business accomplishment. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that get left feeling hollow. And I think that in the core of that is this idea of, are you investing in your growth? Not just the growth of your business, but as a person, are you actively seeking out the growth opportunities to continue to grow and become who you're created to be?
Yeah. Are you continually reading new books that help expand your mind? Are you going to new trainings that help expand what's possible within your business? Are you talking with a coach that's helping you break down walls in your business and finding different things that that you're struggling with? And some of it is that learning-based idea. So being learning-based is just essentially waking up every single day and focusing on finding something new that's going to push you personally and professionally farther forward.
Yeah, and there are times where you feel exhausted and you don't want to grow anymore because growth is hard. Right? But the opposite, sometimes for me, the opposite's a motivating factor, right? I say, hey, I really don't want to grow anymore right now. I don't want to invest in my growth. But if I stop and think, okay, well then what is the opposite of that? What am I actually choosing? Because you're always making two choices when you make a choice. So if I choose to not continue my personal growth, then I'm choosing to stop my personal growth. And that has consequences. And you could say that when it comes to certain things like investing in your growth, you are always making an investment. Some is just a really poor investment, right? So I had this really great experience this last week with my kids. So my kids found an online survey for my BFF. Right? Like how well do you know me kind of thing. So all of a sudden my little girl, my 13-year-old, she drops this, and you're like, okay, it's game time. Can I do well when it comes to figuring out like what's my daughter's favorite color? What kind of car would she like? Where would her ideal vacation or honeymoon be? It was all these questions, right? Did pretty good, by the way. And one of the things that happened with all four of my kids, because when she did, the other kids wanted to do it too. One of the questions was, if you had $100 billion, what's the very first thing that you would buy? Like, okay, so instantly I'm just like, how good did I do as a parent? Right? First option was buy an island. I'm like, oh, that's kind of fun. Another one was, buy a mansion and a bunch of cars. And so there were all these options. One of them was invest your money in assets in the stock market. All of my kids chose that, right?
Were they right?
Yeah, that's why I chose for all of them. I kind of held my breath. I was just like, yeah. And it was really interesting because I realized, okay, so number one is, I'm notching my dad belt around that one, because that and a few of the other ones were pretty encouraging as a parent, because, you just don't know sometimes. But what was really encouraging about that was that comes from conversations that we have as a family that we haven't always had as a family. Somewhere along the line, Rebecca and I chose to start going and figuring out what we need to do to be better investors. And then we started talking about it with our real estate team at RMG, and we started helping people at RMG become investors. And we have a business partner who's excellent at that. So we've given him a platform to help even more people. And then with all of that and those layers and ripples, we have conversations at the family level, right? And so for me, investing in growth is not just the fact that I've made investments. It's the fact that there's a chance now that my grandkids will have a basis of knowledge in being wise with their money that came from this one decision. And that might show up 50 years from now. that's investing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I think of, as you're talking and you talk about your kids, like we invest in our kids' personal growth all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like we'll invest in the school that they go to. We'll invest in the opportunities that they take. Like it's very unlikely that any of us as kids are going to be professional athletes, but we do invest in them playing sports or doing extracurricular activities because they teach them life lessons that happen under pressure and stress that we can't do on our own, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So when we invest in our kids, but we choose not to as business owners, and I think back of, 9 years into my real estate career, I had a small ownership in a brokerage, and I had personally plateaued in the number of sales that I could do at that moment over 3 years. It was pretty much the same. And then we got an opportunity to switch brokerages that was much larger. It wasn't a small brokerage. There was people doing business that were, 10 times, 20 times the amount of business that we were doing. And what happened was being around those people that were in the growth mindset of, hey, I'm pushing, I'm expanding what's capable, and I'm maximizing my time, my effort, and my dollar that I'm spending, ultimately doubled our business the first year. And we stayed in that for multiple years just from being around other people that had the growth mindset. And so one of the things that I think of when I think of this is making sure that you are around people that are looking to grow. Because if you are the person in your friendship groups that's the only one that's looking to grow, you will pull people along with you, but you won't get any benefit from that.
Sure. I love the segue into like talking about your kids. It's one of those things as a parent, you want to see potential in your kids and you want to invest in their growth and all that. And when we're talking about investing, you are like anybody we're talking to right now, whether they are a solo agent or they have a small or a large team, it's highly likely that they are the most valuable asset in their company. Their physical health, their mental health, their spiritual health, like you fill in the blank. The old saying is your business grows to the extent that you do. And I think for the most part that's true, but I also think that businesses can grow without the owners growing along with them. But I think there's also consequences for that.
Yeah, it reminds me of a saying that I heard is that real estate will expand to the time that you allot to it. So if you are allowing real estate to expand to whatever time that you allot to it, it's getting taken from your personal growth and your personal life as well.
Yeah. So then it's like, okay, it's a no-brainer, right? It seems like anytime you're talking about growth, it's like, yeah, everybody should do that. I think there's a couple challenges. One is that true growth is actually hard and painful and just not really fun. And we don't talk about that a ton, but that's the truth, right? When we're growing and it's not painful, it's because we're already kind of we've already kind of paved the way. We're going that way. But I think there's a couple other reasons. One is, when I was just kind of thinking this through, was the question, sometimes the question is, does it matter? Right? If I'm making the money that I want to make, I think there's an internal kind of compelling that's like, hey, why would I go make my life harder by going to all these classes and going to these conferences and having a coach and all this other stuff? Things are fine. Right? What would you say to that person? And just like, well, why does it matter? Things are fine.
Would you rather invest in it when you're choosing to do it or when it's forced upon you, right? Because it'll be forced upon you if you don't choose to grow on your own.
Okay, like period. Yeah, that's the answer, right?
Yeah.
So another question is, I think a deeper, more sinister question is this idea of, am I worth it? Right? Mm-hmm. When I think about all the people that I've seen maybe not push into their growth, and I look at the way that they show up, deep down fundamentally, one of my questions is, does that person believe that they're worth investing in? Right?
Yeah, I think that sometimes is some of those questions you have to really talk to yourself about, and there are some of those conversations that you have that aren't a whole lot of fun, and sometimes you just have to choose to believe, even if you're questioning it. Like if you choose to believe that I'm worth growing, I'm worth doing these things because I can do more than what I'm doing now, And you also use some pain points of like, if I don't, this is what will happen to my family. If I don't, this is where I'll be here later, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to have those uncomfortable conversations, and I'm sure you have as well. But choosing to believe that you are worth it.
Yeah, and I think that if you're listening to this, you're not alone, right? Like, it seems a little bit sociopathic to wake up every day and look in the mirror and have that conversation like, of course I'm worth it. I'm amazing. Like, why would anybody think different? So I think the vast majority of us actually have a fight on our hands at some point or at some level when it comes to, am I worth it or do I deserve it, right? Those kind of things. And I think your advice is really great. I know, Dr. Phil, popularized the phrase, fake it till you make it. And there's some problems with that. But I think that there's a fundamental truth in that. And that is, if you're out of weight and unhealthy, you tell yourself the story, you know what? Healthy people like me go to the gym every day. And then you go to the gym. And are you a fraud? I don't know that it matters, because healthy people go to the gym. And it turns out you're going to the gym. You do that for 2 years. You do that for 3 years. All of a sudden you look in the mirror and you realize, actually, you're not sick and unhealthy anymore. Right? You didn't fake it because you had to do the activities, but you did have to tell yourself kind of a future story of this is who I can be, this is who I'm growing into. And if I can choose to tell myself a future story as opposed to anchor myself to the past or the present, now I have a chance.
Yeah, even better than just that too is if you get somebody that's maybe a step or two above in front of you on that path to be your accountability partner, they can help pull you along. And then guess what? You get to be the mentor to the next person that's a few steps behind you, because we learn faster when we teach something to somebody else. Right?
Oh my gosh, so much. And because we're created to be interdependent, that person, they genuinely see you not as you are, but as you can be, because they got to see who they were, right? So when somebody looks at my health journey and they were where I am, but they're now where I want to go, they genuinely see the vision. And now I don't have to just manufacture it all, right? That's why, businesses, teams, clubs, having coaches, all of these things matter, because there's other people around you that mean that you don't have to be at your absolute best all the time just to try to make it forward. Ooh, I like this one. Okay. Like any investor, investing in growth is do the work now with little or no reward for the future.
Yeah. So when I think of investing of any sort, like if you're going to invest in a rental property, unless you're going to flip it, you might have some some upfront reward. But if you're actually buying a good investment property, you're buying it for 10, 20, 30 years from now. If you think of your real estate career and investing in your growth today as a 30-year trajectory, it's a much easier timeline, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm watching kind of on a personal note. I'm watching. So both my wife and I have great parents, and her parents kind of moved closer to us and some of the other kids. And I'm watching the way that they're choosing to invest and interact in my kids and their other grandkids. But then I rewind and I look back, 25 years ago when I had my first interactions with them as parents, they were actually investing 25 years down the road. They were investing in today, because they didn't just flip a switch and all of a sudden show up as these incredible advocates in our kids' lives. They were doing things as parents, and they were making hard decisions as parents and dealing with their own personal issues as parents so that this can show up today. And I think fundamentally, if I say, hey, it actually is important for me to invest in growth, I have to not just wrestle with, am I worth it and all these other things, but I have to wrestle with whatever my predisposition is to be a consumer today instead of an investor for tomorrow. Because those same things that impact my financial well-being impact my growth. There are things that I can grow into in the next 10 years by investing now that if I go 8 years down the road and then realize it's important, I can't actually make up the gap.
Yeah, you lose the experiential learning that you would get in that time period. So it does tie in a little bit to doing the next logical thing that we talked about last time, right? I'm not telling you that you need to go hide in trainings and go find every training and drop thousands of dollars every month. Find the next logical training or coach or step or book or whatever that next thing is, and put it into your calendar and find time for it, right?
There's some practical things that you can do right now. So when I talked with one of my coaching clients, one of the first questions I asked is, how many books a month do you read? People are all over the map. It's frequent that a book a month is not common, right? The best people that I coach and have the ability to talk with, we're looking at like 4 books a month plus. And that may seem like that's an unmatchable standard. You can grow into that. But books, podcasts, there's so much stuff that we can consume in the car, right? Just that's free. It's just absolutely free to us or very, very inexpensive. And so the barrier to growth is lower than it's ever been.
Yeah, I can tell you that as somebody that 9 years into my real estate career was not a big reader, when I moved companies and started surrounding myself with people that were learning based, that was my first step. Was I committed to 2 books a month, to read 24 books that year, which I completed, which I think were the first 24 books I read since high school.
Sure, yeah.
So I committed to that. It was manageable. I had a system. I listened to them in the car when I was driving and doing different places, and I had kind of the next 4 or 5 books lined up that I was going to read, so that I never got to a spot where I didn't have something to read, because I knew if that was the case, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But then when I went to trainings and I talked to people like you, I would just ask, what are you reading right now? Or what should I read? Right?
Sure.
And then I was learning from people that were far in front of me that were reading books that were going to just expand my mind.
Yeah. So I think, kind of a practical place to start is in the books and podcasts, things like that. Hopefully everybody's getting, a lot out of this, and this ends up being a part of that growth routine. So, I would say that a real practical place to start is to identify one area professionally to start growing in, and to identify one area personally to start growing in. And you want this to be really relevant, because sometimes our personal passions or excitements can cause us to want to go grow in an area it's actually irrelevant to our current situation. So for instance, if you are a mountain climber and you're rucking all the time, and you're eating healthy and all that stuff, and you say, you know what, I need to work on my health. No, that's probably not relevant actually to your success. That is in a place where it's habitual, right? But you might not have any level of peace, and you might not be sleeping well, and you might need to get your spiritual life in order, right? Or you have relationships that are all bent out of shape, and you don't really know how to do reconciliation or forgiveness or letting things go, right? That's actually the most relevant thing. And is that going to be more painful than you doing another mile in the woods? Oh, yeah. But it's relevant growth, right?
Yeah, so the other thing I would say is, when you're putting together this plan and you've identified, I love that one personal and one professional spot to start, make it manageable and make that time meaningful, right? Yeah. Those are really, really important things. Is don't just do whatever, make it meaningful to what you're looking to do, and make it manageable such that you don't overwhelm. I could have jumped in and tried to done 4 books a month and 48 books, right? Like going from 0 books to 48 books a year would have been hard. If I got behind 1 week, I would have been done. Sure. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I love that. So make it manageable and make it meaningful. I think that's really important. A lot of times growth, I think, just gets killed right out of the gate, because we try to go from sitting on the bench to being a starter. And emotionally, we want to be here. We see what that is, but that's just not the next logical step, right? Another one is make it practical and make it relevant, right? Don't overcomplicate it. Overcomplicated things can't be acted on. And so make it very, very simple. So for instance, let's say that the biggest area professionally that you need to grow is you need to grow in the amount of activity that you do, right? You don't need to find somebody's 38-piece system. You need a blank sheet of paper and a pen.
Yep.
And every time you make a call, you do a dash. And every time you make a connect, you turn that dash into an X. And so it's dash, 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 X, X, dash, 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 dash. And now at the end of my lead generation time, I look down and I say, hey, I connected with 10 people and it took me 30 dials, right? Or 30 doors, or whatever the thing is that you're doing. I don't have to make it I don't have to make it extravagant. I just need to do that. And now let me do that for 3 months. I'll know a lot about my business. I'll know a lot about the way I show up. Very, very practical.
Yeah, I would add to that, you know, if you want in some of those situations, if your default is to make the most complicated system possible,
yes,
you're probably hiding from the hard part that you should be doing.
Yes, that's it, right? Your dream, your goal, all of that stuff is really neat. It's really exciting. In fact, today, like I dropped something in the team, our team group me, and that is that, you know, we get really excited about our goals and all that stuff, but we actually lose our way in the execution of doing the hard stuff it takes to get there. And that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So what else?
We didn't talk about goal planning to the now. So getting familiar and having a system for planning the goal and tracking the goal, right? Like that's really the tracking and the accountability around that daily activity is really where the gold of being on track to the goal is.
Yeah. So investing in our growth means taking growth from education to action.
Yeah.
Right. That's the process. Education to action, education to action. So now that I'm in action, I got to figure out where the heck am I going? Mm-hmm. And we did a webinar, actually. We'll put it on rmgagentpodcast.com so everybody can go there. That helps you. We teach the model of how we do this. And it's fantastic, has the action guide, all those things. But fundamentally, what we want you thinking is, okay, so now I've learned this thing. Where do I want it to take me? Mm-hmm. You can just say 3 years down the road. 3 years down the road, if I do this thing, I want to make X amount of money, or I want to be such and such a weight or strength or whatever that is. And I say, okay, well, if that's where I want to be in 3 months, or 3 years, where do I need to be in 3 months? Well, this seems like a practical step. Okay, what about this month, this week, and then today?
Yep.
Right. And so everything in our life that we want to actually grow in and go from information, knowledge to action, it just has this, where am I going? And then just walking it down to bite-sized steps too. It's like, what do I do now?
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. So one of the things that I started laughing because I've been to some big training conferences and things like that. And, you know, the first one you go to, nobody ever really gives you any information, and you make it super complicated, and you come back with this 2-page list of things that you're going to implement, and you throw it all at your business and figure out none of it works because you don't know how to track it. So coming back to that tool and having the one thing that you're going to implement and work on and track, or maybe two.
Sure.
And you're going to be able to track the results, right? Because if you throw 10 things at your business tomorrow that you learned and you want to add, some of them are going to work, some of them aren't going to work. But if you don't know how to track them, you end up with none of them work, basically. Yeah,
like I come back to my business that I'm already juggling 3 balls in, and now I need these 10 more balls. All the balls drop. Like, that's it. You're done. Like, that's it. And that's what we experience all the time. So it's like, okay, I juggle 3. Can I learn to juggle 4? Right? And this is the 4th. Now I do that for a while, right? One of the balls may become irrelevant. So now I'm back to doing 3 really important balls. Cool. Now maybe I add a 4th, right? And now maybe my business gets larger and I need to add a 5th. Okay, cool. So we go through this real practical, start with education, work to action, start with education, work to action, work on your professional, work on your personal, and keep it that simple.
Nice. Well, I think this was awesome. If you guys want that tool for tracking your business, goal setting, and planning to the today, you can check out rmgagentpodcast.com. If you want to schedule a free consultation and have somebody look at your business, you can reach out at hello@rmgagentpodcast.com. And as always, we hope this had an impact on your business. We empower you to do more, and hopefully you're encouraged by this. So have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.